Yeah, just doing a little quick video. Something really horrible has just happened. I feel really awful about it. I can't do a long video on this phone because I don't have much memory or battery. What I'll do is I'll go home, get my proper camera, get my thoughts together, and do a proper video about it then. Okay, but I just want to let you know this has just happened, and I'm just recording the moments just afterwards. Hospital porter's pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV. This video is going to be a long and rambly one. I've made a few notes here, but I haven't made many. But there's a lot I want to say, and I'm not sure exactly how to say it. And basically, I'll go into lots of digressions and things like that. So it's going to be one of those kinds of videos. And it's a bit Slacksarian as well. I'm out in the open doing a little nature ramble, I suppose. I'm actually out in the countryside near where I live in Oxford. I'm lucky enough to live near the border, the edge of the city, which means, you know, countryside is literally just a few hundred yards walk from me, really. Well, a bit further than that, but it's very close compared to most people. Like if you live in the middle of London or something, you know. So I'm out here in the countryside here. Lovely day. Showers forecast, it might happen, but I told you I was going to ramble. What I'll do is, if I really can't think of anything to say, if I'm really lost for words, I'll just cut and start again when I am. I'm not going to give you lots of silence. I'm not going to fill in the silences with nonsense. I'm going to try and make this as relevant as possible. Hopefully no people will walk past, but there is a pathway near me, so you can never get completely private where I live. There's nowhere completely where you're out of the way and things. But, now, this is all, of course, what you've already seen, the little clip I did on my phone a few days ago. That was now. I had a disagreeable experience. I just wanted to get like an immediate reaction, so I used my phone camera and just did a little clip as much as the battery and memory would allow, just to capture my initial reactions. And now, what was it? What actually caused this was I had an argument with someone, a stranger, but it was a homeless person, or someone who was behaving as a homeless person would. Whether they were really homeless or not, I don't know, but I had an argument with this person, and it upset me. It upset me, and it started me thinking about things that have been mulling over my mind for a while, and I wasn't sure how to say it. I was thinking actually of doing this, the video I'm doing now, I was actually going to do a few months ago, but I decided not to. And now I've decided I'm going to do it, and what happened the other day that really led me to it, I think. And some of you won't like what I'm about to say. Slacks, I think in particular, you will resent what I'm saying in this video, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest, and I hope, if you want to discuss it, I hope you can discuss it in a civilised manner. That's all I ask. If I'm wrong, I'll say I was wrong, but I don't think I am. I was just, what it was, this is something it's never really been a big problem for me because of where I go shopping. And now, I used to go shopping near where I live, which is a place called Cowley Centre. It's a shop, it's called Templar Square Centre. It's known as Cowley Centre. I think I mentioned it before. I live very close to that, and I used to go shopping there. But since my work, where I work and where my clients are, because I'm self-employed and I have 6 different jobs. I'm only doing I'm actually got fewer at the moment because of the lockdown, but normally normally I'm full time. Right now I'm sort of like I'm less than that. But I often do my grocery shopping either during a break between my different clients or after I've worked and before I go home, which means I'm going into different shops that I used to. So I don't shop in Cowley Centre like I used to. I tend to shop on Cowley Road. Now, obviously, if you're not familiar with Oxford, you won't know what I'm talking about. But basically, Cowley is an area in the south of the city where I live. It's generally a working class area, I would say. It's famous for its car factory and things like that. And it has the shopping centre. Generally, is where the people of Cowley go. It's the central retail district of Cowley. Where I work in several other places, and one of the places I work quite a bit is St Clement's. And St Clement's is famous for Cowley Road. Now, Cowley Road has become it's become a bit of a. It has gained national and even international fame. A bit like Carnaby Street. You know, it's become like that, and the reason is it's because it has. It's become regarded as a kind of bohemian cultural centre. I even did a video there once, and one of the sides of Cowley Road, basically on the north side of Cowley Road, there's an area there called St Clement's, and it is very much a middle class area, I'd say. It is. It's what you would call. It is bohemian. It's bohemian chic, as someone said. The people there are generally. Sorry, I told you there's noise, isn't there? You can hear right now. Firstly, there's a boat on the river beside me, and there's a scrapyard just a few hundred yards to my left. Told you, you can't get anywhere private and silent here in Oxfordshire. Yes, it's a kind of middle class area. Most people, though, are. It's not what I would call. It's not what I would call like a Sloane area, or like there are other parts which are posh. I would say it's less posh than, say, Summertown. Again, this is local geography. Less posh than Summertown, and it's also Summertown. It tends to be the kind of people you call rich chavs. I think they're sometimes known as, where they just really don't have much of a care about anything really. They're sort of apolitical. St Clement's is very left wing. It is. It's the absolute epitome of what was it? Pat Condell said, left-wing middle-class pricks. I think that's unfair, actually. I mean, I used to live in St Clement's, actually. Yeah. I didn't fit in there. As you probably guess, I didn't fit in there. But what I found is that since I've been spending more time in that area, is a huge number of beggars, a huge number of homeless people. Now, there's always been homeless people. Obviously, homelessness is a major problem, and it's always existed as long as I can remember. In fact, I mean, all my life, I remember since I came to Oxford from West Wales, I remember seeing people like just sitting on the street begging for money, sleeping in doorways. There's always been one or two, and even when my dad was a kid, he said, yeah, you used to get a couple of people like that even when he was a child, and he's like 70, was he 74 now? So it's been a perennial problem. Indeed, I've talked before, I've made a video about George Orwell's book Down and Out, where he actually talks about the homelessness in the 1920s in this country. The thing is, it has expanded enormously in recent years, and Oxford is the second worst place for it than London. It's the second worst place. London's terrible. I mean, there's literally the cardboard city you've heard about is real in London. There is like a mini cardboard city here in Oxford, and it's actually around Cowley Road. And I had an argument with one of these people because, you see, they came up to me and they said, "Can you spare some change, please?" And I turned to them politely and I said, "I'm sorry, no, I don't donate cash on the street." And that's actually the advice the council gives you. Just tell them. I mean, the thing about it is, it is a horrible thing. I mean, I hope you can hear me. I'll speak up a bit because of the wind on the mic, but you know, I don't want to go into too much detail about this. But when I was 16, I ran away from home, or I ran away from my biological family, and I did sleep rough for a couple of months. I actually ended up living with some members of my extended family, and then eventually I moved. I don't want to go into detail, but I did eventually find another home. But yeah, I did sleep rough for a while, and I slept. I went round the back of shops and things like that at night, and I went under a fire escape, and just got some cardboard and sort of built myself a little cover and things like that. And so it's not nice. And I do, as a result, I think, partly because of that, and I mean, I am a compassionate person, less so now, and I'll talk about that in more detail. But so I'm just gonna, I don't need these notes anymore, so I'm just gonna switch my phone off. I'll just get rid of that. I do donate to a national homeless charity whenever I can. I give them money. It's not a regular donation, but I do slip them a few quid when I can from PayPal. I also sometimes give money to a local homeless charity which runs a runs a shelter here where people can sleep overnight. It's completely reliant on charities. It receives no local government funding, which I think is a mistake. I think the council used to fund a shelter, and they don't anymore. And maybe that's one of the reasons homelessness has expanded enormously. So that's what I do. I mean, if you want to help homeless people, that's the best thing you can do. But I just said to this person, "I'm sorry, I don't donate cash on the street." And he said, "You try." He scowled at me. He said, "You try living on the streets, then, mate." And I felt my ire rising, and I said to him, "Are you trying to make me feel guilty? Is that what you're going to do? Just fuck off." And he walked away. I said, "Don't you ever try to make me feel guilty," I said. And I said, "Fuck off," to him. and that's when I walked off, and then I walked down the street, and that's where I made that little clip you just saw at the beginning. And I felt horrible. And I mean, what makes me feel horrible is I could feel I could just feel my sympathy draining away, and a hardness and bitterness emerge within me. It's obviously always been there, of course, but it's something that's burst out onto the surface. I found myself behaving in ways that I didn't, some swans. So some swans flying past on the river. I can turn the camera on, but you've seen it. You saw the swans at St Anne's. Do you remember that, up in the sky in one of my pro videos? Anyway, I told you there'd be digressions. Where was I? Yeah, I felt myself. You see, because I've always respected kindness. I've always valued compassion, and suddenly I felt myself behaving like one of the people. These people without kindness or compassion. I suddenly feel I was behaving like them, and I didn't feel bad about it. I suppose I felt justified by it. And it's a horrible thing to say, but I did. The thing is, compassion is a finite resource. This is what you've got to realise if you know any compassionate people. Compassion is a finite resource. Must make a note for the description box, just one moment. And, okay, I'll just put, so I just want to do this, because I might forget. Okay, so, humiliation. Compassion is a finite resource, and there is such a thing as compassion burnout, which some people experience. And I'll put a link in the description box. I just made a note to do it, to my video Humiliation, a reply to Stefan Molyneux, where I go into that in more detail. Well, basically, you see, my compassion has been plundered. It's a finite resource, but it's been plundered. People have plundered it as if it's an infinite supply which never ends. And this is specifically members of my family have done this. They're the ones who've done it. But if you do that to people, eventually you'll get a moment where it'll probably be quite sudden, rather like Jim Carrey in that film. There's Something About Mary, and he suddenly starts going, his face does, and he becomes in his, what happens is, what the funny, no, sorry, it's Me, Myself and Irene, Me, Myself and Irene is the film. It is a Haverly Brothers movie, it's very good, where he suddenly he becomes two people in one. He has a split personality, and the moment that happens is, because people keep taking advantage of his good nature, because he's a helpful person. So if you know someone with that kind of compassion, don't exploit it. That's the point. I mean, that's the whole point of my humiliation video reply to Stefan Molyneux. Don't exploit it. Don't take advantage of those people. And I think I just suddenly I got very angry with this guy. And I mean, the reason why was it I got angry with him? Because of course I feel sympathy for homeless people, which is why I donate to charities whenever I can. And the anger I felt, I think it comes from this false idea, because there's this popular idea basically that if people are homeless, anyone who becomes homeless is a victimized saint, And I don't mean a resident of St. Helena. They are a divine person, a perfect person, who is simply is being oppressed by something or someone, the causes of poverty and things like that. Every single homeless person is that. They just fall on bad times because of evil people or evil things or the evil system or whatever it is, and they've become destitute as a result. In some cases that might be true, but in others not so. Because some homeless people are not saints, right? Some homeless people are a bunch of stuck-up, entitled, self-pitying, moral blackmailing posers. And I don't feel sorry for them. And I can't stand it when they try and make me feel guilty. The moral blackmail is just unbelievable. I mean, and it suddenly made me realise, why is this suddenly happening? Why am I suddenly seeing so many beggars now? Why have I not seen so many before? Duh. It's because I don't shop at Cowley Centre anymore, or not at the moment anyway. I shop in St Clement's. I shop at the various grocery stores on Cowley Road in St Clement's. That's where the beggars go. Why do they go there? Why don't they go to Cowley Centre? Why do they only go to the St Clement's and they go to the city centre, Oxford city centre? That's where they go. Why? The reason is because Cowley Centre is a working class area. They won't get it. The people there will just tell them to bugger off. They'll say no. They will refuse. St Clement's, as I said, is an area where there are people who are left-wing, middle-class people with reasonably good incomes out of social conscience. And so the homeless people go there because they're the people you can make feel guilty. They're the people, they know how to sit there looking. They sit there and they sit on the outside shop doorways, you know, with that kind of lost puppy look on their eyes, you know, knowing that people will, firstly they'll see them and pity them, but they'll also feel guilty because they are so much more well off, and also they'll realise that, you know, possibly incorrectly, that because their social conscience, because they feel they understand needs beyond themselves, and the beggars exploit that. They exploit it. They go there because they know that they can draw people in emotionally, make them feel guilty, make them feel sorry, so then the person will have all this guilt and this pity, and then they'll basically kiss this person's arse to ease their conscience and just give them money. That's why they do it. And it is moral blackmail. That's what it is. A beggar who does that is performing an act of moral blackmail on people. It's so damn. Oh, it's so awful. It is. I mean, there's not really a lot you can do, really, because there's only one answer you get. They always have the trump card. You ever get into any kind of dispute with them for any reason, they have the trump card. Yeah, but I'm homeless, man, and you ain't, man. And they always do that. They always put on this stupid voice. Yeah, I know what it's like on the streets, man. I'm living on the streets. They always put on this stupid, bloody fake, streetwise voice. And oh god, I told you, it makes me feel uncomfortable talking about this. I know some of you won't like what I'm saying. They always put on this, and it's almost like, especially after they're homeless and they no longer. I've known people who were homeless and find a place to live, and they go on and on and on, bleating endlessly about the fact that they used to be homeless when they're around people, especially when they're around people who never have been. And it's really something they wear on their sleeve with enormous pride. And you know, you may realise where I'm going with this because it's so similar to other forms of victimhood addiction. Who else does that? It's the feminist. It's the black guy with a chip on his shoulder who thinks all white people are out to get him. It's all the various other forms of victimhood. It's the Irish who sing Fields of Athenry all the time. You know, and we Welsh people too, my country. What we're like, we have this as well, which we have this pathology, and here's a pathology, which is basically that the sense of being hard done by, the sense of being put down, the sense of victimhood is obviously, you think, well, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing to be treated badly. It's a bad thing to be victimised by anything. It's unpleasant. It's unpleasant to be homeless. It's unpleasant to be subjected to racism or sexism. It's unpleasant to have your nation occupied by a foreign empire. These things are unpleasant. It's unpleasant to have your language banned in schools. These things are bad, yet for the people who experience them, it develops a kind of bittersweet allure. To the point when, you see, the sense of victimhood, for example, for the Welsh, has become a part of our national identity, and even in a strange way, a part of our national self-esteem. And the same goes for the Scots and the Irish and several other nations as well. It has become a part of our the way we see ourselves. This is why I've said this before many times. If you take that away from people, they won't know what to do with their lives. They won't know where to turn. If you see, feminists don't actually want to see an end to sexism. I mean, thing is, a lot of what they talk about. Thing is, that's the problem in a sense. They don't want to see an end to it. This is why they pretend it exists when it doesn't, because they need to be put upon. They need to be downtrodden. Otherwise, without that sense of, oh, how poor me, I'm a victim, they have to look around themselves and go, well, who am I now? They have to look in the mirror and say, where do I get meaning from life now? Who am I? What is my purpose in life now? That's why, you know, the Black Lives Matter and the various other cultural Marxists maintain and stir up and continuously they just continuously what's the word? They keep it going. They keep it running. There's this all the hardship and things like that. People, you know, if you're not a slave anymore, well, you used to be your family used to be slaves. You see what I mean? And unfortunately, I see that with homeless people sometimes. Not everyone. I mean, since I had that argument, I actually popped into Co-op on Cowley Road afterwards. Oh, this was actually 2 days ago, so it's just the day after I had that altercation. And there was a young woman standing out there, asked me for money, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't donate cash on the street. And she smiled and said, okay, have a nice day. And I said, you too. And we smiled at each other and parted company, and there was no problem. You see, from people I know who've begged, tell me, and there's something I've never begged. I did have, when I was sleeping underneath the fire escape, I did have access to a shelter which provided me with food and drink. But for people who do, they say things like, I don't, you know, they don't mind if people ask. Most of them say, well, apart from the guy I had an argument with, obviously, they'll just say, well, I don't really mind if people say, no, I'm sorry, I can't give you any money. What they really, you know, if they say yes, I will, or no, I won't, they don't mind that. What they can't stand is when people just walk past them with their nose in the air and pretend they can't hear them. That's what they really can't stand, and that's what I never do. I never do that. Because that is a horrible thing. That's a horrible way to treat people, and I never do that. Even to people, even if this guy the guy I had an argument with comes up to me again, I won't ignore him. What I'll say to him is, I say, you better be more polite to me this time, or I will ignore you in future. That's what I'll say to him if I see him again. It's sometimes I think it would just be a breath of fresh air. I mean, if there's one person in particular I'm talking about right here, and he was actually one of the stewards at the John Radcliffe Social Club, which is now shut down. And he was always going on about the fact that he was homeless. He used to be homeless, and like I said, any time you got into an argument with him, he'd go, "Yeah, but you've never been a homeless man, and I have. I've been there, man. I've been there. I know what it's like to live on that streets, man, and you don't." And I thought, well, why don't you fuck off back onto the streets if it makes you feel so damn good, so damn full of yourself. If it makes you feel so good, go back and live on the streets again if you think it makes you so superior. Oh, I never actually said that to him, but I did want to. I really didn't. Perhaps I should have. Because this guy, I mean, it would be such a breath of fresh air if this bloke had just said one day, just said, you know, I used to be homeless, right, and I love it. I'm so pleased. I'm so glad that I was, because it makes me feel so superior to other people, and it gives me opportunities to lord it over other people all the time, and I can look down my nose at them all the time like the dirt off my boot because they haven't been homeless and I have. And that's so I'm glad I was homeless. I wish he'd just be honest enough to say that. But it does become something that people just attach themselves to, and it becomes like the meaning of their existence. I mean, there's a guy who actually watches my videos, or used to. He doesn't anymore. He's actually the same guy I fell out with over the Boris Johnson business, which I talked about in the previous video, a couple of videos ago. And he actually had the word homeless in his social media profile. It was his name and then homeless. It was actually in his username, in his social media profile. He had been homeless, and as I said, this is someone I know, someone I've met, someone I've interacted with in real life at conferences and things like that. And yeah, he has had to sleep rough. He's had to sleep in shelters and things like that. And I'm sorry he's had to go through that. I really am. But why does he actually put that in his very about? He puts it in like the about section of his social media profile. It's in his username in his social media profile. Why? Why? Presumably you don't like it's a bad thing you don't like. Why are you making it part of your persona like that? I mean, I don't know if this person does it, and I've never seen him do it. He's never done it to me. But I hope he doesn't go around sort of like with his nose in the air going, I used to be homeless and you didn't. La-di-la-di-la. Look how much better I am than you. It is very like, as I said, it's like the feminists and the BLM, but it's also like the everything we're all doomed posers that I talked about in one of my previous videos. I think it was the Boris one. And you know this, and the MBAers, and everything's pointless and meaningless, and also the there are no aliens posers and people like that. It's very, very similar. In fact, it's very similar indeed. And the thing is, it's like it's very similar to. There's someone else walking past. It's very similar to the privilege shaming you get, which I don't have to endure because I'm not a lefty ally, so I don't have to endure this. But people who get involved in left-wing politics, especially nowadays, will inevitably be, if you're a white heterosexual male, you'll be endlessly privilege shamed. And they will go, I swear, I've seen them do it. I mean, my brother, who's a lot more left-wing than me, he complains about this. Every time he gets in an argument with something, they say, "You're a fucking white male," and he always says, "Look, I am gay, you know," and he's gay. But I mean, I would say to him, I would just say, I'd just say, you are a stuck-up, bigoted, mindless little SJW, and you go on about privilege. Privilege is to stick to beat other people you don't like. And it is. It's weird, you know, it's like there's this kind of inverted aristocracy on the left, especially nowadays, where you have these intersections of privilege, like race, sex, gender, etc., sexual orientation, etc. And these intersect, and if you're a white heterosexual male, you're right down here. You know, because you're right, like, you have the highest privilege. You know, somewhere there's like a black one-legged lesbian, you know, who has no privilege, and she's like, someone like that, a woman like that would be like at that very top of the pyramid. And again, it's this strange inversion of good and bad, because presumably privilege is a good thing and oppression is a bad thing. They have to always complain about this. They say we want to end oppression, we're anti this, anti that, anti-racist, anti-sexist. But for people who experience racism and sexism, they are put on an enormous pedestal, and they are worshipped by those lower down in the hierarchy. And the person on the pedestal will boast about the oppression they suffer. And they'll go, you're privileged, you don't have to deal with racism and sexism. And and it's always, if they want to attack someone, it's always, they will use privilege, they'll attack them with privilege. Rebecca Watson, as I said, when she wanted to get back at Richard Dawkins, she called him privileged. They always do this all the time. Which means, and there's those, I mean, there are people, I mean, when I was involved in the left, I mean, I was a trade unionist for a very short time. When I was 18, when I started at the hospital, I got involved in trade unionism. I've explained before, I've talked about this before. I've just done, actually, I've recorded a new video with Rin McKaylis, which I'll be uploading soon. You can find it on her channel at the moment, actually, although I think she's going to move it to her BitChute channel and delete the one on YouTube. But I talk about trade unionism, about how I saw through it very quickly. But this was when it was, when I was involved in it, it was more kind of what's today called class reductionist. So they had no time for feminism or the BLM stuff or anything like that back then. But there were people like who would, it's really sad, who actually from what I'd say materially privileged backgrounds, they were middle class or something, who would pretend not to be. So, and they would put on fake accents. You know, they natural accent is quite slightly posh. It's received pronunciation. They put on fake Cockney accents and things like that. And it's what I mean by an inverted aristocracy. It's like everything's back to front. Because of course you all know about the snobs. I mean, there's many people who ape the gentry. You know, who like the character in Sleuth, like the movie Sleuth, not the remake with Jude Law. It's a good standalone movie, but the original is so good that I just don't like the remake. But it's Michael Caine. It's 1972. He's with Laurence Olivier, and he plays a man who comes from a poor background in London. He's a chap called Milo Tyndall, and but he's done all right for himself by running a hairdresser's. He has he wears a smart tailor-made suit, and he speaks in a posh accent and he's obviously trying to make himself more appealing to people of a higher class than himself. And the other character, who's naturally posh, Wyke, played by Olivier, was always putting him down for his humble roots. And of course everyone goes, isn't that horrible? Isn't he a snob? Isn't he horrible? People will say that. Isn't Wyke horrible for doing that to Tyndall? But those very same people will, this is in the old left, not the modern left, will turn that on its head, and they will attack people they see as a higher class than themselves in exactly the same way. They will class shame them. And it's weird. I mean, it's inverted snobbery. And the sad thing about inverted snobbery is, snobbery and inverted snobbery are the same things. If you treat somebody of a lower class than yourself with hostility and prejudice, there's no difference, in my view, than if you treat someone of a higher class than yourself with hostility and prejudice. Inverted snobbery is, but the thing about it is, most people don't see it that way. Most people don't understand the double standard that they are embracing. And that happens everywhere, doesn't it? I mean, it's worse nowadays than ever, because calm, rational voices are being drowned out everywhere by hysterical screeching. And this is just one example of it. They will not understand. They will not understand their own hypocrisy when they will rile against the aristocracy for their supposed snobbish attitude towards the working class. Although I personally find that the most snobbery, I'm working class, but the most snobbery, I don't actually receive much snobbery from the upper class. The snobbery I received is from I think it's from the middle class. I mean, most of the hostility the white working class gets nowadays is from the sort of left-wing middle class. But anyway, the point is that they will rile against that. They'll rile against the lord of the manor, looking down his nose at the plebs. And those very same people will then when they meet someone who is high, they'll say, "Oh, you posh, you posh, stuck up," whatever. They use words like "you posh bastard" or something like that. And they won't understand their own hypocrisy. They won't even perceive the double standard they are operating on. Inverted snobbery is a horrible thing because it's one of these bigotries that we're allowed to have. And I've seen a lot of that, and the people who don't like Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, I've seen a lot of that from them. I've even seen posters from the Socialist Workers' Party put up on walls saying "Go back to Eton" and things like that. And it's true, Boris is a posh guy. He's upper class. He only came here to Balliol College, Oxford, and he is definitely an aristocratic, posh man. And people look down the nose at him from that. They deride him for his from coming from the upper classes. And I think that's horrible. I mean, why should we do that to people? Why should we do that especially when we embrace? Why should we do that to people, especially the people who then feel so indignant about people of a higher class looking down the nose at people of a lower class? I hope I'm making myself clear here. I told you I'd ramble an awful lot. I'm a person who could. I myself am a person who I'm in a position where I could privilege shame lots of people. In fact, I could privilege shame probably 90% of the people around me, because I suppose I am, because I'm working class. I'm also quite rough working class, I would say. I'm in terms of my income and lifestyle, I'm sort of rough working class. So I don't even have skills. I mean, I've never done an apprenticeship. I was a hospital porter. You know, that's all I have been since I was 18 years old until now. Until, well, a few years ago when I got sacked. But I would never do. I would feel horrible to do that to people. I really would. To do that to people. But it's like, it brings us back to the homeless people. I mean, it's almost like people are now. You see, this competition for being the least privileged. It makes you. I want to ask these people, and this includes the homeless people, it includes the people on the left who go on about privilege. Why do you say you're against all these things? Why do you say you're against racism? Why do you say you're against sexism? Why do you say you're against all these things and you want equality? When you obviously get an awful lot of kudos from these very things. You get a lot of self-satisfaction. Obviously, it's something you use in social interaction for the purposes of manipulation, assertion, and just putting someone down. You use it to put people down. So why do you want it to end? And they couldn't. As I said before, feminists could. A world without sexism, even perceived sexism, let alone racism, let alone real sexism, would be unthinkable to a feminist, because they couldn't exist in such a world, because what would they do with their lives? As I said, what kind of identity could they have then? What mission in life could they have then? They have to reassess every single thing they do. Same with BLM. If whatever it is that BLM want in terms of the racism they believe that black people are subjected to in America, supposing they were to have their way, what would they do then? I think this is why they're such dangerous people, because and same with the feminists, is because every time they gain something which alleviates the problem they claim to oppose, they just imagine another. So I'm going to speak up because the wind might be on the mic. They just conjure up another one in their heads. It's going to get to the point where they will literally, if they ever get the chance, kill people. They will literally. I mean, history is very clear on this, right? Power plus hatred equals atrocity every single time. Every single time. I could give you an example, but you've just thought of one. You just thought of another, didn't you? You make people hate, you give them power, they commit atrocities. If these people ever sort of formed a government, as a white man, well, I don't think I'd live very long. And this is why they would literally, like it would be a mass grave and it would be a bullet in the back of the head. I think I literally think they would go that far if they had the opportunity. And then what they would just turn on each other. They'd start the narcissism, small differences would come out, and before you know it, there would be a civil war with once the evil menace of white men were destroyed, and their lives still weren't perfect. They would then turn on each other, and in fact we saw this actually. Everyone predicted when Barack Obama became US president that racial tension would ease within the United States because, well, we've got a black president, haven't we? It didn't. It got far, far worse. In fact, what we're seeing in America today is with the hostility and the rioting is very much a product of that era. It's just basically it's a culture that emerged during the Obama administration. Ooh. I mean, I love the Four Yorkshiremen. Have you ever seen the Four Yorkshiremen, the sketch by Monty Python? There's literally these four Yorkshiremen, and they're sitting around in some posh hotel, they're sipping this wine. It's the Chateau Le Boeuf, isn't it lovely? No, we never used to have that when we were kids. We used to have tea in a cracked cup without milk or sugar. And then another one says, "Or tea." Now what happens is they start talking about their childhoods and their poverty and the poverty they experienced. And every time one of them reminisces about the hardships they had as a youth. I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to see it because it's so funny. Another one of the Four Yorkshiremen comes up and he says, "Luxury. You had it easy. My family, we had..." And then they say how much harder their life was. And pretty soon they get into a downward spiral of competition over who had the toughest upbringing. And it's only a 4-minute sketch, but by the time they get to the end of it, one says, "I lived in a rolled up newspaper in a septic tank, and we had to get out at midnight and we had to clean the road with our tongues." And then finally, I think it was Idle in the end. I think Idle is the winner because he says, "Right," he said, "he used to have to get up in the morning before he went to bed. Had to go and work 29 hours a day at the mill. We had to pay the mill owner for the privilege to work there. And when we used to come home to our septic tank, my dad used to cut us into little strips and drink our blood." Beat that. And the thing is, what's lovely about the Four Yorkshiremen is this sketch. It lampoons this kind of like these people who are just in love with their own sense of victimhood. I mean, on one of the Black Lives Matter rallies, I saw this awful sight. It was one of the guys, a black guy, had stripped his top off, so he was topless, and he had like some stocks over his head and arms. So he had his head and arms like that, with like wooden stocks holding them in that position. And this is what they used to do to slaves. And he had someone tugging them along by a chain. So he was like dressed up as a slave would be. And I thought to myself, this guy he's literally obsessed with his own sense of victimhood. He's obsessed with it. And obviously he feels angry about injustices he perceives were done to his people. That's fair enough. And of course there were injustices in the past as there are today, but for him it's become something that he has clung on to that makes him who he is. Maybe this is why BLM are always going on about the injustices that happened in the past, centuries ago sometimes, because these are things that can't be changed. If you complain about a injustice in the modern day, then that can be alleviated. It can be halted. It can be undone. Justice can be found, as has happened happily many times in this world. But something in the past you can't change. You can't change it at all. And I think this is why BLM are focusing on so-called historical injustices. And yeah, there were injustices. But I mean, the issue is, which I've talked about before, is that there wasn't just white people committing them. It was all people committed injustices in history. All races, all nations, all cultures have things in their history they should feel ashamed of, but they also have things in their history they should feel proud of. Where BLM and the SJWs have got it wrong, or I'd say deliberately they are lying, is they're saying basically the only people in the world who should feel that, who should feel shame and guilt over their history are white people and no one else. And that of course is a digression. Another one. But oh dear, I could go on. What I'll do is I may even put some more. I may even insert some more scenes in. You may see that there's some scenes inserted where I think of something else I want to say, but I can't think of anything else I want to say now. I think I've covered it. I think I've got it off my chest what I wanted to say, which is that in summary, there are people who, of all classes, and people who are in very, very difficult situations, who are not necessarily angels. And there are people who are in privileged positions, who are not necessarily demons. And I think it doesn't matter, right, what you do, if you're going to do something wrong, if you're going to do something wrong to people, that is exploit them emotionally, the way these posers do, sitting on street corners, then that's bad. And I don't care if you live in the proverbial rolled up newspaper in a septic tank. Like, you do that to someone, it's wrong, it's bad. It's, don't give me this shit, man. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, man. It's survival of the fittest, man, and all that sort of shit, alright? I'm only doing what I have to do to survive, man, and all this sort of stuff. It's just for someone to say that in this day and age in this country, it's just more signalling. It's just more preening. It's more posing. That's all it is. And I don't respect people like that. I think they're doing that again. It's just they're basically saying, I can do whatever I want because I'm hard done by. I can do anything I want. I can behave in a really bad way, and it's mitigated by the fact that I'm so hard done by. I live on the streets, man. Or something like that. Or if you're a feminist, but I'm a woman who's been oppressed, and therefore, and you see a lot of feminists do this. Feminists will abuse men, white men specifically, terribly, and they will say at the end of it, it's justified. They deserve it. Whether you as an individual white man deserve it or not, whether you've done anything wrong, is irrelevant. White men specifically, deserve to be abused because of A, B and C, because her last husband dumped her, or your great-great-great-great-grandfather might have kept a houseboy. Every bad thing done is justified. It's rationalised falsely into a form of self-defence. And I see so much of that everywhere. It doesn't matter what you do as an individual, you will still be treated that way. And as I said, I've reached a point, and it really came out the other day, where I can't be generous anymore. I can't respond in the way to this sort of thing the way I used to, which is to be calm and just sort of like not say anything. I just felt so angry. This guy was literally, because I wouldn't hand him money of mine over to him because he asked me to be homeless. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if this guy actually is homeless. I mean, he looks quite well groomed. He's well dressed. A lot of them do, There's a lot of fake. They are fake beggars. A lot of them. There are some. I know. I see. There's one I see regularly on Cowley Road. I know not only that he's not homeless. I know where he lives because I walk past his house and I've seen him in the front garden with his wife. He's married, lives in a semi-detached house. I can't. I'm only human, and I've got my limits. And as I said in my humiliation video, I think I put on an act in a way, for whatever reason, to make that point. I'm not acting anymore, but not only am I not acting, I realise possibly my compassion was drained from me many years ago. As I said, this is primarily by members of my family. It's not other people. It's members of my family, and it probably happened. I really think my compassion probably left me probably sometime in the early 2000s, I would say. It just left me, and so for the last almost 20 years now, I've been a miserable, curmudgeonly Scrooge. and every so often it just bursts out of me. as I said, if I think of anything else to say, I'll add in a scene. I'll add in a couple of extra scenes, but right now I think I've made all the points I want to make. Thank you all of you for watching this unusual, not very well structured video, but I hope you found it interesting and entertaining and thought-provoking. And of course, the comments section is open if you wish to give me your feedback, criticism, support, abuse. I get all of those. Thank you very much for watching Hapanwo TV. There'll be another video coming very shortly. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.